My name is Craig Reinhart. I'm the Occupier Services Lead for the Portland office at JLL, sitting with my good friend, Matt Ellis, founder and CEO of Cloudability.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. Matt, thanks for taking time. I wanted to tap you to get your insights on something that's near and dear to both you and I, and that's living here in Portland, the tech community in Portland, and building companies here in Portland. Tell me a little bit about your background in starting Cloudability in 2011, and then it'd be interesting to know as a founder, why did you choose Portland? Or did Portland choose you?
So I came to Portland because I met a woman here, and she came with me. We went around the world, but she always hankered to come back. And frankly, Portland's a lovely place when you come visit it. I don't know about you, but I've met so many people who've come here just once or twice and decided to move here. The big challenge with Portland is because the community is so face-to-face, there's almost nothing online. So every few years I'd check for jobs on Craigslist and couldn't find anything. I'd go to monster.com, there'd be nothing, and go somewhere else instead. And when we had our second kid, my wife needed more help than I could do by myself. So we decided just to risk it and move here without a job. In the middle of the recession, and I had some confidence. I'd done 4 startups, so I thought I could find an idea for a 5th startup, and that's why we came here. What I found when we got here was that to put down roots here, you have to be here. It's very unusual. I've worked in cities all across the world and across America, and Portland's the only place where everything's face to face and not online. You've got to turn up, you've got to make some friends, but when you do, wow! And the community sucked me in. And when we first raised money at the time, it was the norm that when you raise serious money, you move back to the Bay, where we've been living for 5 or 6 years. And so we got ready for that. We were just like, didn't put down too many deep roots because, hey, we're going back to Menlo Park, don't you know? And then something changed, and the startup scene here got serious enough that we were able to raise serious money without leaving. And that changed everything.
When you think about the startup community here in Portland, how do you think Portland's startup community and just Portland as an ecosystem compares to larger tech hubs?
So I think we've talked about this before. There's, first of all, the city size. So when the city gets to a certain size, you can have selfish, poor behavior and get away with it because there's enough people who don't know about your reputation. And cities like Portland are small enough that people have to behave well. They can't be bad actors. If you offer help or if you do things, you'll be held accountable to it. And we've seen people kind of flare up and leave the city because of that. And we've seen people who quietly put in work behind the scenes, people like Stephen Green and Mara Zabeda, who really work hard, who get a lot of doors open because they're known, they have a good reputation. So the first thing I think is not whether it's a startup scene, it's the size of the city. And I love where Portland is at this point. You get a lot of access to a lot of good people. For startup, this city's had a checkered past. It's been boom and then bust. Like every recession has basically burnt the forest and cleared almost every startup, except for 2 or 3 or 4. And those ones have kind of lingered on. But in the last cycle, companies like Puppet and Elemental and Urban Airship and Tripwire and Jive, we weren't there yet, and Jive and Janrain, they thrived instead of staggered on. And they were able to build a big enough business and have enough credibility that companies like ours were able to ride the tailwinds of their reputation and raise money without going to California. The investors, instead of going, oh, Oregon, oh, right, you moved to the Bay, right? They went, oh, Oregon, oh, there might be a bargain out there, based on the performance of these seminal companies that cleared the way for the rest of us.
So when you think of some of the challenges that companies here face, and they face in the Valley as well, attracting top talent, how do you sell Portland? How do you view the competitive landscape for Portland and attracting engineering talent and other top talent that you might seek?
So so there's, in any industry, there's a perception of where is the Silicon Valley. So for example, if you're in sportswear, Portland, Oregon is the Silicon Valley. If you want to be serious in sports clothing, you have to come to Portland. So there's always a group of people who see themselves as elite and will only go to that elite city. Yeah, the internet's changed a lot of things in this, though. And, there are people who are elite capability who are also looking for other things. And so we found that for individual contributors up to a very senior level, they're typically under 35. They may be wanting to have a family or a lifestyle that isn't just work, 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 work. They'll still get a lot of work done. They're not slacking, but they've got a bit more of a balance. And I went to the Valley, and all I wanted to do was work 100 hours a week for a startup. It's getting easier and easier to persuade those people to come to cities like Portland and Boulder. There's a great quality of life here. There's a great community, and you can still be in the Premier League of what you do. The biggest challenge is attracting people who are a little older than 35, who may have teenage children in high school, who've established roots in other cities like Seattle and New York and Los Angeles, and getting them to come to Portland has been really challenging. We've had 3 occasions in the last 2 years where we've made offers to senior executives who were completely set to come, but their partners didn't want to leave the city they were in for our opportunity. And if there were more startups in the city, there would be less risk. There'd be more chance to think of putting your feet down, put your roots down. But currently, about half of our E-team are not in Portland. And that creates communications challenges, cultural challenges, time challenges. We've had to work very hard to make that up. Mm-hmm. And the biggest impact has just been the delay in trying to find someone. Because, if I wanted a great lawyer or a great realtor or a great finance person, I can just tap up someone like you and someone. But if I want a great VP of sales for selling cloud software, or I want a great head of marketing or business development or professional services, there's very few people in the city who've been doing that. It's a chicken and egg. Mm-hmm. You don't get it until you had it, but you don't have it until you get it. Mm-hmm. And so, companies like ours, who are I think the second wave of the Silicon Valley funded startups, we're creating enough depth for that to happen. So the companies that come after us may be able to hire our senior director of sales as their next VP of sales. Mm-hmm. And one thing where we are covered in this city is in finance and technology. We do seem to have depth in those areas where I can find senior executives, maybe in people as well, but in the commercial side of the business, the selling and the marketing and the networking and the deal making, we've had to go outside of Portland.
Interesting. So how do you feel the cost profile of doing business here, from rent to wages, et cetera, influences Portland's success and Cloudability's success here in the Portland area?
I think it nets out. I think that because of this challenge in hiring those senior staff I just mentioned, you do get a commercial bump there, but you're spending the money flying people around. And for us, I think it's a wash. The thing we get that's a huge bonus is the staff in our city are much more mission driven. They feel like there's a much more cooperative arrangement with our colleagues. It's not like, I'm going to go work for Airbnb because they're offering me. They backed up the money truck. And in the time that we've run the business, I've only one time had an employee kidnapped by the money truck. They offered me so much money, I couldn't say no. And even then it was a little disappointing, you really want to go work just for money? So I think, when we did buy a company in the Bay, we had 13 amazing employees there. And, we had people 4 years out of school come to us very reasonably and say, you're paying me $150K a year. I need a pay rise because I can't afford anywhere to live within an hour of the office. And these people were not being unreasonable in that ask. That they could go and get that money from one of the glamorous companies. And that inflation that's particularly in the Bay, but we're now seeing in Seattle, is really tough. It's tough on emotional bandwidth, on focus, the continuity when you lose a key player in a team, and it's the key players who are affected most by this. And the iniquity of it. So, we had to raise the minimum salary in that office because there were people who couldn't afford to rent at all. They were living with friends to keep their job going. And it's tough working in a team environment where some people are so worried about money that every day is a terrible, frightening thing for them. And in Portland, I think that our most junior employees can still live near the office and bike or walk to work and aren't worried about things quite so much. And that, as a culture, feels much better than a culture where you've got a few superstars making 10x the most junior member of the team. Mm-hmm.
What do you see as Portland's greatest challenges and greatest opportunities? And are there inflection points that are on the horizon that will allow not only Cloudability but other companies to prosper?
Yeah, if you ever researched this, so it's too long to go into. If you ever researched the story about how Portland became Portland, it was kind of an accident, and then some good people saw the opportunity and drove it hard, but the inception of it wasn't intentional, and we kind of lucked out. And 30, 40 years ago, this city was a backwater, and it was kind of, cities like Denver and Portland weren't really places to go, and now they're destination cities. And I think the biggest challenge is how to keep that without losing the magic. And as an outsider who could have set the company up anywhere in the world, I see tremendous potential in this state and in this area. Sometimes when talking to people who know much more about the local area, who've been here their whole lives, who know everyone for decades, they seem more reluctant to move forward in the same spirit that got us here. To get us here, we had to do some pretty radical things, and we need to do more of that. There's things like infrastructure, homeless, taxes, PERS, the schooling system. All of those things could be tackled if there was consensus. And it feels sometimes like we want to keep what we've got, and so we're not going to change anything. And it can be difficult to have real leadership and change around here. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly something happens. It's like, I don't understand how the stuff got some blocks and suddenly everyone can get behind something. It's really odd. I don't pretend to understand it. That's probably why I'm not a politician. But that's the biggest risk, is that we stand still, or that we end up fighting two sides to a stalemate, mm-hmm. rather than moving forward together. There's a really interesting sense of togetherness in this city and in this state that I've not seen in any other place I lived in America, that I think is special, and I hope that we nourish that and preserve it rather than fritter it away on arguments. And the current arguments, for example, about the gross receipts tax and mm-hmm. paying for education, it's like, it feels like some people want to raise 10x what we need and other people want nothing to do with it. And that's a normal range of a discussion, but like, mm-hmm. how do we get past that and decide, well, we're going to do something. So if we're going to do something, how are we going to do it? I worry about that getting bogged down like the rest of the world.
Agreed. Thank you, Matt. Switching back to raising capital, your headquarters, pressures to move out of Portland, which are in the past, but has there ever been a point where you said, we potentially need to move the headquarters or move out of Portland? Yeah. Give us some...
Yeah, there have been a couple of times. I mean, the first thing any new investor says to you is why you're important, particularly if they don't know the area. Mm-hmm. So now you've got to put some of your personal capital to work on why you should invest in our company when we're here. All right, we're not just a bunch of hipsters, where young people go to retire. So you have to spend some of your personal credibility to get there. And there have been times, the city's leadership sometimes has been erratic. There have been times when Measure 97, it's just, fiduciary duty of running the business. Measure 97 would have taxed everything we did. And we're very supportive of a gross receipts tax in a shape that could be borne. But at the time, we had about 60% of our employees in Portland, and we would have saved a material amount of money by paying the 10% of our people who live and work in Washington to just go to an office down there, mm-hmm. and to stop hiring in Portland. And that would have been the end of our hiring in Portland, because it's really hard to say, let's go pay $500,000 or $1 million a year for a VC-funded startup just so we can stay in the area. It would be a disproportionate amount of money. And there are other times when I get exasperated by the lack of foresight, or a small group of people being able to stop progress in this city. Mm-hmm. And there have been times when I've had conversations where I'm like, did we do the right thing? Mm-hmm. We're here for the long run, and the right response to those times is to go and have conversations with people and get involved and understand you can't win all the arguments, and just try and make a difference and be present. So we're very supportive of organizations like TAO and BBPDX and OEN that have a really interesting and nuanced discussion and provide a really important interface between business and legislators and community. They make our time, they amplify our time. So half hour spent with Ashley or Skip it has a big impact for us, much bigger than if we spent hours and hours doing our own engagement. And so, we turn that frustration into more engagement and more effort and trying to do more. than the kind of spit out your dummy and walk away.
Well, that's great. That's a great segue. I was going to ask you for a shameless plug for those organizations, those community builders that have really made a difference to Cloudability, and obviously BBPDX spending a little bit more time maybe.
The list is really long.
Well, if you take a moment, and I know you can get in trouble by not mentioning somebody, but at the same point, I see you actively engaged in the community through those organizations and others.
It's not just BBPDX. I mean, BBPDX, we have a soft spot because a minute put in with BBPDX seems to produce 10 hours worth of effort through any other channel. So for us, the idea of a chamber of commerce that's not just lobbying for more business-friendly legislation, but for a stronger community means happier employees. We've lost employees to other cities because of the state of the schools here, for example. And so there is a business outcome, but as a business owner, we have recognized the impact on our community, and the conversation of businesses owning their urban pollution is, a really important one, I think, for the future of this country, rather than always arguing one-dimensionally for anything that's in my interest and denying anything that I may have been contributing to, but I'm going to push that away. I think we need more nuanced discussions and more nuanced arguments where there's no black and white, but there are shades of grey. And BBPDX is all about that. But there are other community activists. I mean, Terry Starbucker with Build Oregon, Mara Zepeda with all of her work, Genevieve LeMarchal, Stephen Green with Pitch Black, Linda Weston, Maggie Finity, Skip, and now with Cara Snow, who's joined us from Atlanta. She's come here all the way from out east because she sees an opportunity here. Then the Julia Edwards Brim with Nike and the Coalition for the Common Good. There's just so many people in the city who are not nakedly arguing for one side or the other, but are trying to find a pragmatic, practical way to make our city and our state better. And I probably could list more people. The list of people who I feel are opposing that is much shorter. So I get the sense, maybe I just don't know them, but I get the sense that we will prevail in an argument of let's have adults make compromises and try and make everything a little bit better continuously than to stop progress or to stop change. So it just feels like there's a lot of those people, and we're very, very lucky to know. I haven't even gotten to the women's groups like Janice and Tic Tac with PDX Wit with Megan. Just the list goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah, sure.
Josh Carter with the veterans. It's a long list. And then even people like you and the lawyers and the accountants enlisted and the bankers who sponsor so much stuff. It's a very giving community, and I've worked across the land, and I've never really been somewhere where it's such a default thing for companies to get involved, and you like your thing and I like my thing, and that's just fine, and you support those and I support these, and we're all being more supportive. I think it's a very cool thing, and I think it's easy in Portland to lose track of that and think that it could be so much better, and it could, but compared to many other places it feels way better.
Agreed. Thank you, Matt. So before we wrap, I have this last question that you and I have had so many fabulous dinners together and over cocktails, or just listening to you talk about not only what it means to have built your company here, but to have raised your kids here. You were obviously born in the UK. You've always had a unique perspective on innovation in the US contrasted by other countries, whether it's traditions or our way of approaching things, now your way of approaching things. Let's finish with any further thoughts you have on that innovation, what it means to have built a company here with your peers, and then what should we be thinking about? How should we think of ourselves, Portlanders, Oregonians, the American technology worker? You have a unique perspective that not others have. I'd love for you to give us your thoughts, and then we'll wrap.
So I've been living in America now for nearly 15 years, and one of the first things I missed was my tea. It was hard to make a good cup of tea, right? But I took it for granted. We have tea all the time. If there's your house just burnt down, let's go have a cup of tea and calm down, And so the reason I share that is because I think when you grow up with something, it's easy to take it for granted. And as an outsider, the thing that's always blown me away about the American story is doing the right thing because it's the right thing, and stuff tradition and stuff vested interest and stuff people won't like that. This is the right thing. It seems to be the fundamental driver of this country's success. And when I was a teenager, my first stint of working in the US, I was finishing a video game. I was a teenager, mind you, right? I'm a young man, right? And I was getting cranky in this office because we had a foosball table. I'm not sure if you've ever worked within a mile of a foosball table, but it's the loudest non-electrical thing humans have ever made. And it was really disturbing my concentration. And as a cranky old 16-year-old, I went and complained to the people playing the foosball, can you not do that? Why do you do that is what I actually asked them. And they said, well, we work better when we let off a bit of steam. So this very counterintuitive thing of having this very loud thing in the middle of your office was actually the right thing to do. That the programmers are doing some really hard mental work. They needed to change tack from time to time to rest their mind. And this was a great way, and I really got into foosball. And time again, the success stories in this country, not just business, but philosophy and politics, everything. Art, music, wine. It's like we're going to do it the way we like it, the way we want it, not the way it should be. And fundamentally, I think that's the thing that drew me so powerfully to this country. And the thing I love about Portland is there is a value on novelty and originality. You know, when someone told me that Salt and Straw, Kim, was making marrowbone flavored ice cream, or I met the lady who makes organic food grade protein powder from locusts, it wasn't like, it was like, wow, that's cool, I'll go try some of that, all right? And that makes this city very unusual. And it does remind me of San Francisco of the late 80s and early 90s, where originality was valued and praised. And that creates an environment where, from everything from talking to the press, talking to your advisors, you go to the lawyers, you go, I'm going to make food grade protein powder out of locusts. And instead of going, oh, you're crazy, I'm not going to work with you, that sounds like a cool idea, I'm going to get you my best person on this. And I really think that helps and drives and fosters innovation in the city. And it's been the American story. It's what created Silicon Valley. It's what created so many things. So as long as we can keep that and not let vested interests or fear get in the way, we're going to be okay. And I think you see some really bright spots of that in Portland. I think you see it time and time again. The great new idea that is actually the right thing to do. And people persist because there's an environment that supports you, even though it feels crazy. Lots of good ideas felt crazy early on. Elon Musk felt crazy 10, 15 years ago. Henry Ford felt crazy for paying his workers a living wage, $5 a week, whatever it was, $15 a week. You know, that's a crazy idea, and now it's normal. And those ideas invented here in Oregon, it feels really good to be near that.
I love it. Thanks, Matt. So last word's yours. Anything else you'd like to share? And then we'll wrap. But really appreciate you taking this time.
Well, one thing we didn't cover was how easy it was to network in this city, and how, in the first year of being here, knowing no one in the business community, I met you, I met our lawyer, I met our accountant, I met our banker, and 7, 8 years later, we're still with all of them. So we quickly met the best people, and not just to you, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who's helped us on our journey so far. I look back and I think having bad advice, or no office, or a very expensive office, or crummy accountants, it would have really, really impeded us. And in the Bay, the way you get the good people is you pay $1,000 an hour. Here, it feels you really get the value for money. So thank you to all of you out there, and especially to you, Craig. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you, Matt. Really appreciate it.